Hi, everybody. Hey, the other day I was visiting a friend and she noticed I actually had a bit of eczema on my hand here. And she said, "Oh, can I rub a little bit of ointment into your eczema?" And so she went and got a tube. She didn't get this tube because this is deep heat and it's not ointment to put on eczema. But she went and got a tube of this lovely ointment and she slowly and gently rubbed it into my eczema. And touch is a wonderful thing, isn't it? When you feel that somebody actually really wants to care and show gentle touch to you. And so she eased put the ointment into my skin, and it was lovely. And I almost teared up because of someone just caring for me like that and expressing love and concern for me. And when she finished, I checked out the tube of ointment and I had a particular look at all the ingredients. And I was so relieved that there were no dead flies in the ointment. You might think, Barry, seriously, did you look for dead flies in the ointment? No, I didn't, of course. But it's a funny little saying, is it, that there's there's dead flies in the ointment, and it's kind of like, oh yuck, that's ruined the ointment. There's no dead flies in this ointment, and my hand healed up really nicely. But that phrase of dead flies in the ointment, I think it might come from the writer of the Bible book called Ecclesiastes, and it says in Ecclesiastes 10, verse 1 this: "Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a foul odour." So a little folly outweighs wisdom and honour. Yes, and dead flies, I think, would ruin some perfume or ointment, wouldn't they? The fly just lands and it gets stuck in all its, yeah, stuff gets spread throughout the whole ointment and it ruins the ointment, and you wonder about the quality of the ointment and you probably don't want it on there. Anyway, the eczema is gone, and maybe the touch that she gave and the ointment she applied helped. So I wrote a poem, as I'm wont to do, especially lately. I've been writing lots of poetry, and it's really actually helped me a lot in sort of collecting my thoughts. So here's the poem. She noticed some eczema on my tired hand. She offered an ointment, gentle love on a beaten hand, on a sun-beaten land, I should say. Rubbing and caressing, the ointment worked in. Wisdom flowed over the pain, healing something within. I checked out the tube the ointment contained. No dead flies within, no pollutants to stain. Wisdom from above is gentle and pure. There's no invoice attached, no trap or dollar charge cure. The young prophet comes and turns over the tables. It's free access he demands to God's wisdom place. There's no elitism at God's mercy seat. All are welcome. Wisdom ointment is free. And of course, where I was talking about the young prophet, I was talking about the story where Jesus comes and he finds that there is charges being laid and restrictions for people to get into God's temple to worship and to give thanks. And so that just pushes every button in him, as it would in me, picks up a whip and drives those dead flies out of the temple courtyard. But I need wisdom, lots and lots of wisdom. Every day I need wisdom, and I suspect you do too. And much of the wisdom I have found and I've relied on in my life has come, I think, with dead flies in it. And something I've learnt later on, something smells about it. And um, it in first instance all seems pure, full of love, truth, but then you later find out that there are strings attached and expectations to be met. And there's a one of Jesus's followers, James. I think he was kind of like an ointment tester as such. And he could sniff out dead flies from a mile away. And he absolutely hated elitism in the church. Elitism basically says there's one level up here and there's another level, there's another level, there's another level. And he said there's no levels. There should be no levels to access God's love and grace. And he wrote about it in James 2, and he says, if a man comes into your church, into your home group, into your small group, into your faith community, dressed in expensive clothes and with valuable gold rings on his finger, just imagine that, all right? And at the same moment, another man comes in who is poor and dressed in threadbare clothes, and you make a lot of fuss over the rich man and give him the best seat in the house and say to the poor man, you can stand over there, and if you like, or sit on the floor. Well, judging a man by his wealth shows that you are guided by the wrong motives. So he was really hot on anything that would cause elitism between rich and poor, educated, non-educated, really anything that would be say that you are there's a level, and those who are up in the level get preferential treatment. And then later in his brief letter, he writes this: wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. And so, in his mind, there's like 8 qualities to wisdom. First of all, it's pure, like it's free from defilement. There's no dead flies in it. It's holy, it's sacred. Secondly, it's peaceable. It brings like a sense of God's gift of wholeness, of completeness. Third, it's gentle. It's not going to be overpowering. It's not over the top. It's fair. It's reasonable, and it's moderate. It's willing to yield. This wisdom is willing to yield. It's compliant. It's ready to obey and willing to bend and submit. And number 5, it's full of mercy. So there's pity, there's mercy, there's compassion. It's really not casting justice and demands on a person. It's full of good fruits, and it's full of what I think God brings out um, as the fruit of a spirit-led life. Things like love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control, which are all from Galatians chapter 5. Number 7 shows no trace of partiality. Okay, so that's what he was talking about with the rich man and the poor man. There's no unfair bias or preference. All right, and finally, the last quality of wisdom: there's no hypocrisy. It's sincere behavior, free from hidden agendas or selfish motives. And that's the wisdom I want. That's the type of wisdom that I need. And I think you need that type of wisdom too, where there's no dead flies in it. There's no um, agendas with strings attached. And, I think of myself and others that come to turning the page. I think they want that kind of ointment applied to the pain points of their lives. I was recently with someone who was writing some books, and it was an interesting topic that they were writing about. And I'm sure the content that they were writing could be of help to a lot of people. Then they mentioned that they would hopefully sell lots of books, and I smelt a fly in the ointment. That I was thinking of some of the people that I have supported over the years in, prayer, and they will never be able to afford that particular person's book. They would not probably even be able to read that particular person's book. And so I felt, the fly in the ointment is that this is showing partiality. And I thought of the most profoundly impactful thing I have done in ministry And when I was pastoring a small church where most people had quite severe mental illnesses and really had a lot of struggles, and this is something that I don't think many pastors would ever want to do. It's something I threw caution to the wind, and I said, "Would any of you like to preach a sermon?" And it was going to be about the series of the Beatitudes. And so I said, "Okay, this is the story. You pick one of the Beatitudes, and I will meet with you, and we will write a sermon together. We will talk about it, we will discuss it, we will write it, and then you will present it." And that was a lot of work, I can tell you. It would have been easier for me just to go on and put it out there. But I thought I'd try that. So I did. And so we had a woman struggling with psychotic voices talk about how she got control over those voices and those racing thoughts. It was a memorable message I've never heard. And everybody that heard it just looked and listened and took it in deeply, because here was a woman that was facing the same struggles that many of them were facing, and she was sharing from her ointment as such. Then had a gambling addict talk about making peace with his wife after binge gambling. Then there was someone with extreme PTSD and multiple personalities talk about suffering and trials. Then a man who had been sexually abused as a child talked about his struggle with sexual addictions and where he needed to find comfort. And they were sharing their ointment, and there were no flies in it. It was peaceable, it was pure, it was good. I think I found 1,000,000,000 angels dancing in the pews. And I think James the Apostle might have been at the back holding up a scorecard saying 10 out of 10. And everyone went away changed, particularly the people who actually shared their stories, because they'd never had an opportunity to do that and probably never have since, which is kind of sad. And some of them said, "Can you please print out some copies of my notes? I want to give them to my family. I want to give them to my mum. I want to give them to my friends." It did a lot of their healing journey themselves, and it still chokes me up with tears when I think of them. And probably that they will never have that opportunity again. Um, and so, Turn the Page here is dedicated really to giving good ointment, ointment that really heals, ointment that doesn't have stinky flies in it. And so everything is free, or give what you can. This is a faith-based website ministry, and I don't want any dead flies in God's ointment. And there's a lot of ointment on my webpage. And my favourite ointment book, if I can call it that, is one called Broken to Build, 31 Days of Rebuilding with Nehemiah. And it's one I wrote many years ago. It's a devotional book about the healing journey of healing a whole city, a nation, but it also has application for us in our lives. So, hey, that's the YouTube, that's the blog, that's the podcast for this week. I pray that you would find healing, a healing ointment with no dead flies in it. Okay, bye. By the way, if you want to read more, there's a link in the blog, in the subtitle below, whatever. And if you want to be part of helping me create more good ointment, then you may want to give us a couple of dollars. That will be helpful. Okay. Bye.